Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Chris Daglis here with Mike Kunkle out of the US. Mike, are you in Texas at the minute?
I am in Texas for the moment.
Excellent. Mike does a fair bit of travel around the US with his training and seminars and user groups. Tell us a little bit about that, Mike, because you're going to be bringing some of that to Australia, where we'll be joining forces to deliver some training.
Well, look, it's really depending on who you are and how you want to look at things, right? Is the glass half full or the glass half empty, right? I think it's a really exciting time to be an auto recycler. Why is that? Well, because times are becoming more difficult. Right, the pandemic was a boom period. We did really well during the height of the pandemic, and there wasn't really a lot we could do to not necessarily do it right and profit from it. Now all of a sudden things are resetting and coming back. Now at the same time all of that is going on, the mainstream business world has found us. Private equity in the United States is running around buying up a lot of the really large, well-run facilities have all gone private equity. Internally, that private equity thinks that they are the future of this industry. But we have been written off for dead on multiple occasions and continue to survive and come back through. So, once again, we're to a point where if you're working on your business, if you're putting in the effort, building a solid foundation, maintaining the foundation, moving things forward the way that you should be moving things forward, then all of a sudden, this is still a really fantastic business that you can
Yeah.
be very long and prosperous with it.
Can I jump in there? So, from a perspective of some of the training we're doing here in Australia, so we've got three trade nights in March. Um, on the 6th, we're in Brisbane, which is a Thursday, the 6th. On the 13th, Thursday, the 13th, we're in Sydney. And Thursday, the 20th, we're in Melbourne. Um, we're running, eBay has asked us to put on these trade nights. We did it back in 2017, 18, pre-pandemic, well pre-pandemic with Pinnacle, in fact. And, we got 80, 90, 100 people per event. They were amazing, right? It allowed people to get back together, whereby, we were in one facility, one room, people mingled, they certainly interacted nicely, and ultimately we were able to share ideas. Now, from a training perspective, we're running sales training and we're running owner manager training. Why is it critical that, especially in Australia, you believe, and you're making the trip over here, especially for it. Let's face it, you're coming here for the 3 week period to do these training sessions. Why is it really important for Australian auto recyclers to send their sales team firstly to the sales sessions, and secondly to do the owner manager training?
Well, I think that first, as an industry, we develop confidence very, very quickly. And the truth of the matter is, over the last couple of years, an oddity has occurred within our industry, which has seen our prices kind of work their way up. Now, all of a sudden, if an engine that used to sell, and look, Chris, I'm an old guy, right? In my heyday, we sold engines for $400 a piece, right? When you sold a $80,000 worth of parts that month at $400 engines a piece, you sold a lot of parts.
Yeah.
Well, now an engine sells for 2,000 plus, it becomes a different ball game. So you had a lot of people that had a pretty significant uptick in their sales dollars that are all of the sudden the paycheck went with that, right? Because the way things work and deal and producing more, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden the lifestyle becomes elevated and expectation becomes elevated. Then reality starts to come back in because prices are working their way back down. Have they bottomed yet? That's a matter of opinion. Where will they bottom? The truth of the matter is, the pandemic is over. We're back to normal business cycles. What is normal business cycles? Well, that means that we buy a product and we chase the part price on its way down, trying to find a point where it works in order to sell it and maximize it. During this period of time when the salespeople have been selling at a high level, dollar wise, they haven't been selling at a high level performance wise. In other words,
The
they're
volume,
accepting and
basically the volume.
processing the
The
order,
number of sales are
the
similar, but
volume.
the value of sales have increased. Absolutely.
Right.
I mean,
So,
you've got some salespeople in your sales groups and Rob's sales groups that are $400,000-500,000 a month in sales, right? Some even
yes,
more. Some are over $1 million.
yes, yes.
Um, in Australia, we don't see that. We might see 150, 200,000. That's a good salesperson over here.
Well, look,
So what are some of the things that we're going to be teaching? Let's give us three teasers during the sales session. I'm throwing you under the bus here a little bit. Give us three teasers that the sales team can't miss out on hearing and learning about.
well,
Techniques.
the first thing is this is becoming more and more about relationships, right? Because look, the artificial intelligence is coming. The technology is not that far off. The computerization of the process, the elimination of the people, that's not in the salesperson's best interest whatsoever. So the first thing is embedding themselves in the relationship part to where the customer truly believes that this process will not properly work without them. So the
Mm,
first thing is how do you develop relationships? Right, of digging down in there of what are the questions to ask, what do you go about doing. So that's a major component of this, right? Truly understanding the premise of the circumstances from the customer standpoint. We do this robotically, so we want to sell a part a certain way. It's pepperoni pizza. Here's another pepperoni pizza, another pepperoni pizza. Truth of the matter is, I can make a pizza any which way you want it. I got to ask the right questions. So, understanding what the right questions are to ask to get the foundation from the customer
mhm.
standpoint. Then the other thing is being, or the final thing would be to be honed in on what the customer is saying and looking for those opportunities to close the sale for in there, not to oversell it, not to pushing in there, and kind of work it start to finish, create the
Mm.
relationship, handle the customer's need, close the sale, and continually repeat the process.
Excellent. Excellent. I think there are three key things that we can't underestimate the value of, right? Building the relationship, understanding the customer, what they want. Do they want pepperoni? Do they want a mushroom pizza? That's really, really important. And then closing the deal. So one of the things, and I always found this hard, Mike, when I was selling myself. Um, I'd come to the US, I'd hear the Americans talking about closing the deal, asking for a PO, right? Um, Over in the US, it's a lot more accepted, if you like, to be able to ask that question. I think you're more forthcoming in asking that question because maybe it's accepted more, right? It's accepted and expected to a degree. Over here, it's a little bit more difficult. It's actually quite a challenge to sort of say, "Hey, can I have a PO for that?" It's sort of a little bit, you're a bit front-footed. So one of the things that I learned to do was to manage that really, well, I wouldn't say really well, but a lot better than what I was traditionally trained or not trained to do. And I want to touch on that in a second. But that's one of the things that we'll be teaching. How do you ask for the sale? How do you ask for a PO without that uncomfortable feeling, if you like, where it's like, am I being too forceful or not? So I think that's one of the really important things.
What you talk about is in the US, we have a lot of people who are a hard sell personality. But the truth of the matter is, the overwhelming majority of the industry, even in the United States, isn't that way.
Yeah,
And so, what you have is lots of people that are just afraid to ask for the sale, period.
that's it.
And in my career, what I found is asking for the sale is hard, really hard. But
Mm,
if you start off over in the very beginning with the right foundation and the right questions, then you're just leading them down a path to at the end of the path, it's a no-brainer that you know that I'm going to ask the question and you are comfortable with answering the question because we've kind of led down a path of conversation, of developing the rapport, the
yeah.
repertoire, the relationship in the mix, which is huge.
And I think that's a really important point, and that is it's not only about coaching around how do you ask for the sale, it's more so about coaching around the process so that you can get to that point of the discussion. And okay, I want to move over to the owner managers session in one very quick second. So from a salesperson perspective, uh, again, in my view, and I'm there as a supporting act to you during the training, Mike. But the reality is, in my view, Australians cannot afford not to send their salespeople to these things. Why? Because damn, for less than 400 Australian dollars for a 3 hour training session, all they need to do is sell one extra engine a month and you've made up your money. You've made up your investment, right? I think the return on investment of this is 100x, not 10x. It's 100 times your investment. Why? Because they're going to, your salespeople are going to take the learnings and apply them over a lifetime if they do it properly. All right. So, okay, moving on from the sales piece to the owner manager session. Um, owner managers, why can't they miss out on being there?
Well, look, the people have very wild imaginations, especially around the profitability of the business, right? And in a lot of instances, especially in the recycling industry, these are old companies, family owned, multi-generational, and sometimes the employees seem to forget that the company has 50, 60, 80 years worth of success behind it, which leads to the lifestyle that is led, and the
Yeah.
company isn't near as profitable as the overall appearance of it. So rather than leave things to everybody's imagination, I'm very much of that, open book management, the Toyota way. I mean, there's a million different authors out there that have written books about it and deal. But basically, I'm a be honest with people and talk about it things. And the whole point of keeping score is to determine what is winning, what is acceptable, what is above the standard for
Mm,
doing it. So, what numbers are important? How do you frame that out? And then how do you do that in a way that doesn't make you seem like you are the greedy tyrant that's just trying to squeeze all the money when all what we're really trying to do is have logical discussions? I mean, I use a very simple mathematical premise called a 7 line profit and loss statement. Sales, 100%. Cost of goods, 50%. Gross profit, 50%. Labor, 20%. Fixed operations, 20%. Total operational expense, 40%. Net profit, 10%. Keep it simple, keep it in the box, and come back.
yeah.
20% of the revenue for payroll is 20% of the revenue for payroll. The higher the revenue is, the higher the payroll can be, and the formula still works.
Yeah.
This is how everybody does well in the company, is keeping the mathematical formula right. So
Yeah.
we're going to kind of dig into a lot of the math around that, and how do you take something that sounds very, very simple, that is extremely difficult to implement into reality, but getting everybody to pull on the same rope in the same
Yeah.
direction at the same time.
And I think perfect, perfect. The 7 step process I think is critical, and I know a few of the guys that attend the URG conferences and ARA conferences and are in your user groups certainly do hear some of that, a lot of that. We'll be talking about some of that as well as some other opportunities there for the management and ownership teams to actually manage the business better and get to that 7 point sort of P&L in an efficient way. One of the things that we will be expanding on, in Australia, there's a lot of Pinnacle users. And to be honest with you, out of the 250 odd Pinnacle users in Australia, I would say 10 to 20 of them, so about 10% of them maximum, use Pinnacle well, um, in the context of, they've got this tool available to them with a plethora of um, reports that they could use. Which are the right ones? Because you can dig into the weeds and sort of miss the mark. So we'll be talking a little bit about which reports you should be looking at, why you should be looking at them. And I think the critical bit here, Mike, and when I talk to people, it's not necessarily about how to do it. It's not, click this, click that, and click. It's about why you need to look at this number, why it's important to you. Why is your historical cost of goods important to you, for example? Why is all of that critical, and how does that affect the 7-point profit and loss?
Look, the truth of the matter is, Chris, we have product lines. We don't ever look at it in this industry that way, but we have product lines. We have in stock, we have brokered, we have warranty, we have,
Mhm.
I mean, it's just much more in the US than over there, but core is a component of what it is. The freight, things, the certain amount of add-on opportunity to sale that there exists, whether it be environmental charges, things that can be manipulated. Everybody has circumstances that come in there, but being able to objectively look at it, I mean, we have to produce gross profit. We use gross profit to pay the bills. Without that, we are not in existence. So,
Mm.
kind of looking at how do you maximize it and how do you get a plan in place that everybody understands and agrees on, at least enough to a point for everybody to be progressing towards a common goal.
Perfect. All right. We're going to wrap it up, Mike. You mentioned a couple of things there. You mentioned warranty sales, extended warranty sales. You mentioned core. Yes, they are smaller parts of the Australian market, but for those that are watching this from a sales and from a management perspective, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into brokered sales, core sales, warranty sales. All of those things um, will help you become a lot more profitable. Why? Brokered sales, you're not paying for the product, and well, you're paying for the product, but you're not paying the labor and all the effort to go into it. It's buy, sell, and you've already got the call coming in, right? You don't have it. So if I haven't got this and I can buy it from you, Mike, for $10 and sell it for $20, $100 and sell it for $200, all of a sudden I'm made $100, right? So if I came to you today, Mike, and said, here's $100, do you want to keep it? Yes or no? I'm telling you 99.99% of the people that I go to are going to say, yeah, give me that $100. So why wouldn't we do that? So that's the first thing. Warranty, extended warranty sales, money for jam, great opportunity. I think, from the people that I work with in the US, Mike, 70% of the warranty sale you get to put in your pocket, right? 15% goes as a commission, 15% goes in dealing with, any issues around warranty. The 70% is gross margin. It's the most profitable part of your business. And cause is a smaller part over here, but I think it's becoming bigger and bigger. And we're getting some people that are now entering this market. Auto Enterprises will be there because they're doing a lot more in cause out of the UK, here in Australia and so forth. So Australians, 6th, 13th, and 20th, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, respectively. We're running 2 sales sessions. They're exactly the same sessions. One's from 8 till 11 in the morning. The second one is from 12 till 3. Why? So that you can send half your sales team in the morning, the other half can cover, and then the other half swap over in the afternoon, and you've got plenty of cover in your business. So we're in 2 sales sessions, AM and PM. Immediately after the PM session, we've got at 3:15 to 5:15, we're running the owner manager training, a 2-hour session there, intense session. And then immediately after that, we've got the barbecue trade night with eBay. So come and listen to what eBay has to say. There's some really, really exciting stuff that they're going to be talking about. Unfortunately, I can't say anything about it at this point in time, but eBay's got some really exciting stuff that's happening here in Australia specifically, that everyone wants to hear about. You really need to hear about it. So come and have a barbie, right? Not sure if I put a prawn on, what do you call it? Not a prawn, a shrimp on the barbie, but we will certainly have plenty of meat. We'll have a few light drinks so that, everyone's being responsible. We'll do a bit of a tour of the facility that we'll be at. Some will be at Mannheim. Some of them will be over at a auto recycling facilities. The guarantees that you're going to have plenty of opportunity to spend some time with your friends. Mike, thanks for joining this call. Appreciate your time. Appreciate the fact that you're making the trip to Australia in a couple of weeks so that we can, I suppose, provide some coaching opportunities to the auto recycling industry in Australia. So on that note, Mike, thanks very much. See you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cheers, buddy.